Hey everyone, it's Tara here. I hope you're all staying inside and staying well. It's some crazy times that we're in right now, and I know a lot of people are struggling in a lot of ways. So I want to do my best to give back in whatever way that I can. A lot of hair salons are closed, barbershops are closed, and people are staying inside their houses and probably looking pretty shaggy right about now. So I wanted to post this video to show you how to cut your man's hair at home during this quarantine. So here's the video, check it out, and I hope you guys like it. Hi everyone, it's Tara, and this is Adrian. He's going to be my lovely model for today's video. I'll be showing you guys how to clean up your man's hair at home during quarantine. So we can see how Adrian's looking right now. His hair's pretty short, but definitely needs a cleanup around the neck area. So I'm gonna show you guys how to do that. First, we're gonna cover him up with a cape. These you can actually get at a beauty supply store. There's Sally's, or I don't know if they would have them at Target or anything like that, but definitely a Sally's or something like that would have a cape that you can get so that he doesn't get all hairy. All right, so some things that you're going to need are hair clippers and a trimmer, and you're gonna need some guards. So we're gonna be using a number 2 and a number 1 guard for his haircut because his is pretty short. So the higher the number, the longer the hair is gonna be. So these are pretty short. You can see it's a small guard. This one is the smallest one, and I'll probably also do no guard on him. And I'll show you guys how that's done. So first I wanna show you guys how to just trim up the perimeter using the trimmers. You know, you might only need to do this if the rest of the haircut looks okay and you don't really want to try to conquer an entire haircut. This would be helpful just to clean it up to make it look okay until he can get in to get an actual haircut. But this is something that'll just hold you over for maybe a few weeks so that it doesn't look so shaggy. So I'll start with that first, and then I'll show you if you wanted to do more of a haircut, what you would do from there. So you can see that Adrian's hairline is pretty square. So we're gonna square it off in the back, but you might just have to eyeball this and see what shape his natural hairline is looking like. If it's more rounded, then you're just gonna need to follow what his natural shape looks like. So first thing that we're gonna do is following this shape here, we're gonna just cut in and clean it up like this. So you notice that what I did was I flipped this around and shaped it kind of backwards first to get the shape that I want, and then coming in forwards and cleaning the rest of the hair that was around it. So we'll do the same thing on the other side. So same thing here, following that natural shape. Just don't be scared to cut into this. Just make sure that you're eyeballing a plan of where you want to go with this. So kind of angling this how you want that to look. So also I'm going to show you guys how to go around the ear. So we'll do that first so that we can make sure we blend this line with what's around the ear. So if you fold the ear down, you can see these hairs that are hanging. Your man's hair might be longer And so his might be hanging over the ear more. If you fold it down, you'll see all these parts hanging down, and you just want to make a nice round shape around the ear. So Adrian's is much shorter, so I'm just gonna go really tight in there and get all of that cleaned up in a nice round shape. Okay, so you're gonna need a comb for this part, and combing the hair down, you're gonna have to sort of maneuver your hands, holding the ear down and holding the comb, and then with the trimmer in this hand, combing down, and then go right up against the comb. So the comb is gonna help so that you don't cut into any hair that you don't want to cut. So this is gonna protect all this hair that you don't want to cut. You can go right up against the comb like this. Make sure that you can see. Some of it, you're just gonna have to not hold the comb and just be really careful not to cut into any of the other hair. Some of these parts are a little bit trickier. So you'll notice how I'm holding the trimmers while I do this. I'm just using this corner to really shape out that round shape around the ear. So you're basically holding the trimmer at a 90-degree angle from the head. So to make sure that you're only cutting those hairs around the perimeter that you want to cut. So now that I've cut around the ear, I want to just blend this part. So coming in a little bit more to make sure that's all evenly blended. Depending on how long your man's hair is, you might just leave that part alone. If it's shorter, like how Adrian's is, you'll probably want to clean this up a little bit. So taking the comb and combing forward, you're just going to go right up against the comb and clean up some of those hairs if they're too long. Those lines are looking pretty clean, and then we're gonna cut this bottom line and we're gonna square it off, so that point will come down, this point comes down, and then it's just gonna be straight on the bottom. So what you're gonna do is don't be afraid to cut into that line wherever it looks right. You can see that some of this is really thin down here, and then it starts to get thicker the higher up you go on his head. So we're just gonna go right about here. Make sure you don't go up too high, and also if you are too low, then it's just still gonna look kind of messy. So you want to make sure that you get enough of those wispies on the bottom. You can use the comb for this also if any of the hairs are going in an upward direction. You comb those down and then go right up against the comb. All right, so that's looking pretty good. Again, you want to just make sure that you're mindful of what your man's hairline is doing. If it's looking more round than square, you'll just want to make sure that this is more rounded. And this is also just a preference, so ask your guy how he likes it, if he wants it more round or if he wants it more square. Then you would just kind of round that out more. So you'll be able to see this just from looking at it, what it looks like it wants to do, depending on the length. All of that stuff is going to come into play. So can't forget to clean up all the hairs on the neck. So you would want to, so I'm gonna show you with his shirt. Some guys have hair that comes all the way, like, you know, coming out from under their shirt. You would just want to pull the shirt back and just get any of that hair. So I'll show you. I wanted to also say that if you are quarantined at home and you don't want to have to make a grocery store run or whatever, you can find some tools that you might have around the house to do something like this. Those facial hair trimmers, those little electric ones, I have one of those at home. You could do the same thing with one of those. It might be a little bit harder around the ears, but you probably could. But you could trim all of this up with like a facial hair trimmer if the hair is short enough. If the hair is too long, it might be hard. But yeah, you could do this whole neck area using one of those. You could also just use a razor at home, like a shaving razor for your face or for your legs. You could clean all of this up using one of those. But it'd be harder to get this kind of a line with that. You could try, but that would be harder for sure. So if you were able to get a nice clean line like this, maybe even using scissors, or if you have a trimmer, and then you could definitely clean the neck up really well using a razor. So that might be all that you need to do at home, like I said, just to get him through to his next haircut. But if you want to really try and go for it and do the whole haircut yourself, I will show you what I'm gonna do on Adrian. So first, you want to take your biggest guard. So depending how long his hair is, your man at home, depending how long his hair is, the longer it is, the bigger guard you want to use, the higher the number. So his is pretty short, so we're using a 2. You want to start with the biggest one. I'm not going to take this any higher than this line right here, because all of this you would want to cut with scissors because his is longer. If your guy's hair is shorter on the top, you could still use a clipper on the top, but it's always gonna look a little bit better if you use scissors on the top, so you wanna make sure that you have some hair cutting scissors. If you don't, you could try to just leave the top as it is and sort of blend it in with what I'm gonna show you. So the top is always gonna just be a little bit harder to do yourself at home unless you've had professional training to do haircuts. But I'm going to do my best to show you so that if you want to try to attempt it, go for it. I believe in you. Okay, so you'll see there's a adjuster here on the clipper. So when it's all the way down, that's going to be the longest setting, and when it's all the way up, that'll be the shortest setting. So I'll show you. So when we go down like this, you can see how it changes. That's longer and that's shorter. So you can tell the difference because of these blades here, how close they are to each other. That will cut the hair shorter, and then when they're longer, they're farther apart, that's gonna cut the hair longer. So short, long. So you wanna start with the longest setting first. It's not even gonna cut any of this hair because his hair is short. So all of this is gonna stay the same, and we're just coming up like this, holding the clipper straight. Don't follow the curve of the head so much. When you get to the top, you just wanna go straight up. Okay, because his hair is long on the top, you want to move that out of the way, maybe clip it with a clip. Nice pink clip for the military man. Okay, so I'm not following the shape of his head. I'll show you with it off what that would look like. If I was following the shape of his head, that's what you don't want to do. You want to just go straight up off of his head. This is how you fade the hair. Just like that. So next you want to take this setting into the middle. So not the very shortest, not the very longest, right in the middle. And you're gonna do the same exact thing, but just go a little bit lower than you went before. And that's how this is gonna blend. Also, be careful not to come in sideways like this. You want to be going from the bottom up. If you come in sideways, you can leave lines in the hair. So you would make sure that you go up like that. You could go at a slight angle and a slight angle like this. If you do get any lines, the way that you would soften that is just by going in all different directions around it to make sure that you blend those. His hair is pretty short, so you don't see that much of a change happening, but it is cutting the hairs, and you'll see more once we get to the bottom. You'll see more of a difference, but if your man's hair is longer, you'll definitely, depending on how much hair you're cutting off, you'll see more of a difference. But he keeps his hair nice and short, so it doesn't look like that much of a change right away, but you'll be able to tell the difference at the end. So now we're going to take the this adjuster all the way to the shortest length and doing the same thing, but just not as high as we went the last time around. Okay, so now that we've done all of this settings using the 2 guard, we're going to now switch to the number 1. So this is the shorter guard, and you're going to do the same thing that we just did on the longer guard, but this is shorter, so we don't want to go up as high. We're only going to come to probably somewhere around here. So on the longest setting first, and then we're going to do the same thing that we did with the last guard. So I'll show you with the shorter one. So you'll notice I'm going a little bit sideways here, but it's not fully sideways. It's still at a little bit of an angle, and it's just to make sure that I shape around the ear. And I'm kind of keeping this side off of his head and just using this part of the clipper to clean this part around the ear. You still want to make sure that you are not following the curve of his head. It's right here. This is his occipital bone, and that's the part where the hair starts, the head curves around. So you want to make sure you're just going up and going straight and not following that curvature of the head. So now we'll do the mid setting. And then on to the shortest. So because Adrian is in the military and he likes it really clean, a fade to the skin, we're gonna do no guard. So I'm taking off the one and we're just gonna use no guard, but the same thing applies. This is the longest setting and this is the shortest setting. So what we're gonna do is fade from the longest no guard setting to the shortest no guard setting, and I'll show you how to do that. So starting with the longest, it's the same exact thing. You're just going very low here. You don't want to go up too high. So it's just going to be this bottom portion here that we're doing no guard, so that there'll be a nice blend here and you won't even really see that line after we're done with it. So starting with the longest setting. Switching to the mid. And now the very shortest setting. This is just to erase that harsh line on the bottom. We're hardly going up at all with this one. What you can actually do if you want that even more soft is take the trimmer and do the same thing. This one will just cut even shorter than that shortest no guard setting. See, that's looking pretty good. Nice and clean. That could be enough if he just needs cleanup on the sides and the back and around the edge. But if he needs the top cut as well, I will show you how to do that with scissors. So you're gonna need a spray bottle. We want the hair to be wet for this part. And a comb. So now we're going to blend all of this short part with the longer part on the top. So you can see some of these parts sticking out back here. We want to blend all of that. So this is going to be much trickier, but if you just want to watch exactly what I'm doing, and I'll explain as I go, I believe you can do it. So for Adrian's hair, because it's so much shorter, I'm going to blend this using a scissor over comb technique. So holding the comb flat against the head, and then taking the scissors and cutting what's coming out over the comb. And then we're going to take all of this longer hair and bring it out at an angle like this. And I'm going to notch cut all of this to blend that in. Notch cutting is basically where I'm taking the scissor and I'm cutting it in like this towards my fingers and not alongside of my fingers like that. You'll get a much harsher line if you cut against your fingers like this, but if you notch cut, that's gonna give you a really soft line. If you can get your hands on a thinning shear, I definitely recommend this for blending some of these parts that are sticking out. Like if you have a cowlick and there's hair sticking out in all different directions, a thinning shear, which is a scissor that will cut every other hair. Not every hair, it's just a softening, so it's gonna leave some hairs longer and it'll cut some hairs shorter. And you can do the same thing with the scissor over the comb and just blend some of that. So now this hair is pretty long here. We're just gonna blend that. So starting with the back where it's a little shorter. And we're gonna do the same thing and notch cut all of this hair to blend that in. Again, we're actually not following the curve of his head, we're just going straight up. And you can create that line with your fingers and then follow So if I was to hold my fingers like this and then cut along my fingers, it's gonna cut all of that hair in. But if I hold it straight up from his head, that's gonna get that shape that you want, because you want all of this to kind of rest here, and we don't want it to follow the shape of his head. That'll be too short. So using your fingers as a guide, you just cut along your fingers like that. Looking good. All right, so we finished the top, got it all blended in. So now his haircut is finished, and I will show you the finished look. There you have it. There you have it. And that is how you clean up your man's hair at home during the quarantine.
Yes. I feel fresh to see nobody.
To see nobody. You know what? Some men still have to go to work during this, but they have nowhere to get their hair cut. And that is why we're here. Give me some space. Oh, Norman wants to join us.
Owie.
Did I whip you in
That's okay.
the face with my...
I close my eyes.
Do you like it, Norman? Does it get the Norman approval? Okay, do you like it?